there are no boondocks. Okay, so what the heck does that mean? Well, first of all, if you're looking for where's the creator of all of the universe, the creator has to be embedded within all things. So the creator embeds itself infinitely in the universe of thought. And the reason there are no boondocks is because any of us, we may think we've been dealt a bad hand in this life. Like, why am I not a celebrity? Why am I not rich? Why am I not whatever? Why does this person have such a cushier life? Why did I have to end up with those parents? And the answer is that within this universal mind, if the universal mind looks like this, if it looks like a fractal, there's no boondocks. There's no point that isn't an entry point into universe within universe. That's in which consciousness is embedded.
Hey everyone, it's Astro Yoga Woman, Debbie Barnett. I'm here with my friend Victor Shamas.
Hi.
And we're in Victor's home. This is artwork by his mother, which
Sarah.
I think is very cool, his mom, Sarah. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things today, but one of the things we're talking about is his newest book called Deep Creativity. And it's Inside the Creative Mystery. So we'll be talking more about this. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. So my Astro Yoga Woman channel has three main tenets, and that is yoga, astrology, and human design. So I see you've got a yoga kind of shirt on.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. And you've been to India.
I have, in 2008. It is a wonderful trip.
Yeah.
It has commemorated my second book, The Way of Play.
Yeah. And you do chanting. So your first book is The Chanters Guide. Tell us a little bit about that one.
The Chanters Guide, I had already started. I started Global Chant in 1996.
And that's here in Tucson.
That's
Global
here in
Chant
Tucson, although there are Global Chant circles in other parts of the country and even in other parts of the world.
Cool.
And I met a shaman from Oaxaca in 2004 and apprenticed with him for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And where's Oaxaca?
Oaxaca is in central Mexico.
Okay.
And Oaxaca is famous because of magic mushrooms, because that's where Timothy Leary and
that's where he journeyed to.
Ram Dass
right.
were exposed to psychedelic drugs.
And I think there's a movie on Netflix.
Oh, yes,
about that.
I've heard
Something
about this.
What is the chemical tea? I'm blanking on the name.
Oh.
Trypto something.
Yeah. Oh, it's not psilocybin?
Psilocybin, yes, in the mushrooms.
Yes. So they were introduced to psilocybin by a shaman, a female shaman who used mushrooms as a vehicle for healing and journeying. Mm-hmm. And this particular shaman used chanting in the same way, with healing intention. Mm-hmm. So I spent 2 years apprenticing with him, and then I remade Global Chant as a series, as a set of healing circles using chanting as the vehicle.
Cool.
And since that time, and since I wrote my first book, The Chanter's Guide, Global Chant really took off. Mm-hmm. It was a few people, and then it went to hundreds. And,
cool.
And now we have thousands and thousands of people all over the world who've chanted with us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So chanting, for those of you that don't know, it's a form of yoga known as Bhakti Yoga, and that's the yoga of the heart. So it's singing and praise and devotion to the divine, whatever form that might take, from the heart. And one of the things that I had to overcome when I first started chanting was I had been told that I can't sing. You know, or before I would drum, oh, you don't have rhythm, or you can't sing. And so part of our healing in our creativity, I think is overcoming these negative programming that we've been influenced by of what we can and can't do. In your chart, you're an Aries Sun. So that's a fire sign. It's the sun is exalted in Aries, so that's a powerful position. So that's very much a pioneer and a leader. And so I'm not surprised that you've created this, 1,000 people strong organization. And then your moon is in Taurus, and that's a strong throat chakra sign. So singing. So when you told me that this morning, that your moon was in Taurus, I'm like, oh, no wonder he did the global chant.
That's interesting.
That makes perfect sense. So it's ruled by Venus, and then it's having a beautiful voice, because Taurus is the throat. So having a pleasant speaking voice and being able to sing and make beautiful music and harmony. So
yes, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just want to say about that, and I feel that everything just in the last few weeks, I have come to realize how important the throat chakra has been in my life. and in everything I've done. The thing you mentioned before about being told you can't sing, I can't tell you how many times I've heard it, and it just
about yourself or
other people have come up to me and said,
I didn't know I could sing.
Or people told me I have a terrible voice and I can't sing it. And it's like, we're not listening with those ears.
Right.
We're listening with a different set of ears. And the issue is not about what it sounds like to somebody if you're performing. It's about what it feels like and what it does to your heart. Like you were saying before, it's all about the heart and having that heart open. So a lot of our chants are about love, of course. They're about, that's what it's all about.
Right.
And so I don't care if people can't hold a note. One of my closest friends in the world is one of the best chant leaders I've ever met. Jorge. Hi, Jorge. And he's not necessarily the most musically adept. If you've ever heard Yogananda, if you've ever heard some of the original chants of his, they almost sound like monotone.
Right.
You know, and the first time I ever heard Listen, Listen, Listen to My Heart Song, which I had heard other people do it, but I'd never heard Yogananda's version. It sounds like this. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. Listen, listen, listen to my heart song. It's like, really?
Very boring.
It's very monotone
right.
and kind of staccato. And meanwhile, we sing it, listen, listen, listen to my heart song. So it's different.
More melodic.
Yeah, definitely.
But everybody's interpretation is different too.
Oh, sure.
That's beautiful too.
It's an oral tradition.
Right.
So I've written many chants, and as soon as a chant goes out into the world that I've created, supposedly, it gets altered. And then people will sing it back to me, and it's like, oh, that's nice. It's not the way I envisioned it at all.
Well, it's like an artist with a painting. You know, there's what you intend the painting to be, and then there's what people interpret it to be.
That's right.
And it might be two different things.
Two things.
Your other book is The Way of Play. So your first book, The Chanters Guide, and that came out in 2006, 2007, and then The Way of Play in 2010 after your India trip, and you wanted to bring back this idea of having play centers and making play like an activity that we do. Like, I love to color. Coloring's great. And it's very meditative. You know, nowadays you see all these mandala coloring books all over, and those are fun, but to get into our creativity is to be spiritual in a way, and that's sort of the premise of your current book. Before I get there, your third book, Repose, The Potent Pause, came out in 2013 after your Italian trip, right? And you saw that they had a different rhythm to life, and you and I are both drummers, so we understand this thing of tempo and rhythm and pace. Yeah. And you realize the sort of disconnect between the Italian way of life and our way of life here in the United States.
For sure.
And so Repose, from a yoga perspective, it's corpse pose. It's Shavasana, but with your arms out in like what is that? Michelangelo painting.
Vitruvian Man.
Vitruvian Man, yeah.
So your arms are extended as far as they can be, and your legs are open as far as they can be. And that's a little difference from corpse pose.
Yeah.
It's like corpse pose on
more
steroids.
Yeah, right.
And so it's a
very
little more
open and vulnerable.
Yeah, so some people say vulnerable. And to me, vulnerable means that you are susceptible to injury or attack. But it's definitely receptive. And so, and those things are similar, but they're different, right?
Yeah,
because you can be open without being vulnerable. And there's been research done on these poses called power poses, the Wonder Woman pose. You stand like that. Yeah. And then men or women who stand in that pose before they go into a mock interview do better. They're more confident. They appear more competent. They have lower stress levels, higher levels of testosterone, which always adds to that confidence boost. So the idea of the researchers who did that work on power poses is that the more that you're trying to make yourself big, expansive, and the more expansive you make yourself physically, the more expansive you feel psychologically. well, I say, what's more
Right.
expansive than repose? There's
Yeah.
nothing. There's
Yeah.
no pose that you can think of that would open you up. Imagine you look like a starfish when you're doing this, but you're lying on the floor or a mat or a bed or sandy beach if you're lucky.
the beach.
Grassy lawn. And it doesn't matter where you do it. And the beauty of repose is that it's not meditation. So I'm not teaching people how to deploy their attention. You don't have to focus on something or keep from focusing on something. What happens is your body leads your mind in repose. The body leads our mind many situations.
Well, that's according to human design. That's the principle. That's the vehicle, the body is in charge, and the mind's supposed to just get out of the way.
And that's the whole idea. The mind gets out of the way. If you put your body in this open, receptive pose, your mind will follow. And it always does for me.
Yeah.
From the I've been doing repose 3 times a day. We recommend lying in repose for 7 minutes 3 times a day.
Okay. Did y'all hear that? 7 minutes.
First thing in the morning.
3 times a day.
We recommend 3 p.m.
So like meal times. It's like breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, it's like breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the soul.
For the soul, yeah, for your nervous system.
For your nervous system.
Right, because it engages parasympathetic nervous response.
Yes, absolutely.
Sort of like it's like unplug your mind from your, I'm using my phone to film this, but we often, so many have our electronic pacifiers in front of our face all the time. It's like, put your pacifier down, go lay down, let yourself rejuvenate and heal. And so that's 7 minutes, 3 times a day. And what are the effects of that?
We found that 30 days of doing that, people reported improved happiness levels, optimism levels, lower stress levels. Their psychosocial functioning went up. Their number of days of physical activity missed because of pain or injury, illness went down. And none of those are the reasons I like repose. I mean, those are great. It feels good, and it's opened me up in terms of my own creativity. So when I started doing repose, I had been working on this deep creativity book for many years and put it aside many times because I didn't have a complete picture of the story.
Yeah.
And then once I started lying in repose 3 times a day, that started to flow.
Yeah.
Started to flow very easily. So for me, repose is delicious, but it also is an incredible tool for the flow of creative ideas.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you were talking about having done research on this effect, the repose effect. Tell us a little bit about your background that you would talk the way you did. Because you're a yogi, and you're a chanter, and she has your rising sign is Gemini, by the way, which is dualistic. I have Gemini Moon, Gemini Mars, so it's almost like there's parts of us that are 180 degrees opposite, seemingly, but yet it's all the same. Yeah. So there's the very mystical, spiritual, shaman training, chanting, India trips, and then there's this other side of you that is your past life of...
I was a science nerd. Yeah, I went and got my master's in chemistry and taught chemistry. My fascination was with environmental chemistry. I thought that if we understood chemistry, we could solve the environmental problems of the world. And then at some point I came to the realization that those problems are very easily solvable technically. The challenges are psychosocial. But what happened to me is I had a chance to teach in a program called Tropical Biology. It was Hawaiian Natural History. And I discovered a passion for coral reefs. It led me to the South Pacific and to Australia, where I had a revelation. March 16th, 1987, I had a moment of revelation that changed my life. And I switched from chemistry to psychology. I moved from the Pacific Northwest and the rainforests there to the driest part of the United States here in Tucson,
Arizona.
I came to a place that had a consciousness studies program, and it had a creativity researcher because I wanted to understand the relationship between creativity and consciousness. And so that moment of revelation was what switched me from being that science nerd, and very happily. So I loved studying the physical sciences, and to somebody who understood understood that there was more to life than that there was more to understanding the world. The scientific worldview has its merits, but
it has its limits.
But it has
like
its
everything,
limits.
right.
Exactly. And beyond those limits are worlds within worlds that the scientific community isn't touching.
Yeah.
And I basically jumped off of the scientific merry-go-round around 1994 when I got my PhD, after 96 when I finished.
What's your PhD in?
In psychology. So I got my PhD in psychology from University of Arizona and never left.
You've been there, you taught there, right?
And I taught at University of Arizona for 22 years.
22 years. What did you teach?
I taught everything in the psychology curriculum, from intro psychology to more advanced courses like sleep and sleep disorders, psychology of consciousness. I did honors colloquia in creativity and innovation, the adult development and aging, child development, pretty much everything.
Everything.
Because I'm a generalist and my mentor was. And we believe the psychologist should know psychology. And that means anything. It's really tough now.
Yeah, these days, yeah. That book is getting bigger and bigger.
Yes, exactly.
Bigger and bigger.
Intro
now they say,
psychology.
oh, you have a bad mood? Oh, that's a disorder. Like,
Right.
no, that's a human emotion.
Right.
You can't pill that out of me. You can't drug that out of me.
Exactly.
Cool. So that shows that you're very broad. You have lots of broad interests. A lot of people claim that Geminis are jack of all trades, master of none, and I disagree with that. If there's something that we're fascinated with, we will dive deep.
Yes.
And you have dove deep in a lot of different subjects and a lot of different areas. And it's, and I want to mention too, before we move on, at that turning point in 1987, that was your Saturn return, wasn't it? That was your first Saturn return. And then you had your second Saturn return a few years ago, and you had another turning point. So it's like Saturn is our timing on the Earth, and its cycles. So first 30 years is like you're learning how to manage the earth plane and how to adult. 21 is freshman year. Saturn return is you graduate into adulthood. And so you had this turning point, your whole life changed, you moved to Tucson, you took up another area of study. And then the next Saturn point came, which was just a few years ago. And what happened then?
Well, actually, my Deep Creativity was published March 6th. Of this year, and my Saturn return was apparently one of the times that Saturn returned to that spot. I guess it does several times.
It does because of retrogrades. Yeah.
So it was March 7th, and so that was a very, very intense period in my life. So definitely, and to me, this Saturn return is the culmination of something that started at the completion of this project that started in 1987.
Right.
That led me on a quest to understand the experience of creative inspiration.
And then led to this book.
And it led to Deep Creativity.
I love this cover, by the way.
Yeah, and
That's
so
beautiful.
the image on the cover is the Eye of God Nebula. That nebula, to me, carries significant power.
As do all nebula.
Yes,
but this one in particular.
Because the idea of an eye of God suggests that there's a microcosm, macrocosm relationship.
Well, that's the whole theory of astrology, right there. Yes.
And also it says that if the whole universe is within the eye of God, is being beheld within the eye of God, that means that whatever you think there is to the universe, there's always more, because there's the beholder. And whatever you think the beholder is, there has to be more.
Right.
Because there's always something
a beholder.
seeing the beholder. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So the eye of God says that no matter what you think of this reality in this universe, there's always more. And it's a very, very important reminder, because that's Deep Creativity took me deep.
Yes.
And it took me
30
to a
years,
point.
right?
It took me 30 years. And part of the reason was, okay, what happens in this flash, this moment of inspiration, right? What happens in a single flash? Well, it's hard to take that apart. It happened in a flash.
Right.
How do I know?
It's instantaneous, like the aha moment, the epiphany.
Right. So then the next question is, what if I can sustain it? Like, can I stay in that space long enough to really observe it? And I think that Repose was a very key element for that.
And it's in your book. So you wrote a book on repose, and then it showed up in this book too, right? Because it is
Yes.
a key element.
Yes, because...
And that's the relaxation too. From a yogic perspective, every now and then we need to relax our nervous system.
And then suddenly these magical things happen.
Right.
And so everything in my life has led to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And the discovery of repose, which was a rediscovery of something I used to do in childhood. I used to lie like this with my friend Ronnie, and we would stare up at the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we spent a lot of summer afternoons. Mm-hmm. And so when I found this beautiful grassy spot in returning from Italy, I just fell into a pose that had been natural since childhood. I have a friend who teases me and says, "You act like you invented lying on the floor." And I said, "Well, I didn't invent it, but
You're
I
reintroducing
discovered
people to
it."
Yeah.
You see, I discovered it because I discovered that lying in this pose carries this power that's both relaxing and energizing. And that's a really good place to be, because I felt the moment I lay back as an adult for the first time, and I hadn't done this as childhood, was I felt like I was a sail, and there was this energy moving across my sail.
Cool.
And I thought, oh, so I'm tapping into these energetics that I wasn't even aware of just by lying in this pose on the grass. And that's when I realized I had something that was powerful and worth studying.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that it was going to open me up to be able to sustain those moments of creative inspiration and to live in that space. And once I started living in that space, I understood how rich those moments are. They're packed. And so
it's the bomb.
that's what this book is about. That's what deep creativity is about, unpacking what's going on in a single moment of inspiration, because I see those moments as a taste of enlightenment.
That's very cool. So you devoted your life to creative inspiration, and it's led you to this point now, and you just released this book just 2 months ago, and you're doing a book tour.
That's right.
And share where you're going to be. You're going to be in Colorado in May. So I have friends in the Boulder area.
Hi, friends in the Boulder area.
So if you want to host Victor to come do a book reading, I've been to 2 of them. One at the book fair that Tucson has here, big festival, and then also at Barnes & Noble recently. So if you've got a yoga studio or some kind of sacred space or book group or anything like that, and you're in the Colorado Boulder area in May, reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with Victor. Also, he's going to be in California. You said Northern California?
Yeah, so basically my tour schedule on the 13th of May, I will be in Colorado Springs. 16th, Denver. 20th, Boulder. 27th and 28th, I'll be in Mendocino. Then I head up to the Pacific Northwest for the first and second week of June. I'll be doing events in and around Seattle, Port Townsend, British Columbia. So I have 4 events.
I have friends in the Seattle area too.
Yeah.
Seattle peeps.
And I have a lot of friends in the Seattle area.
You grew up there.
I grew up there, so we can party on.
Yes,
if you want to party while I'm there, I'm very open to it.
Okay.
And then March 24th, that leg of the tour ends in
May.
June 24th.
Okay, this summer.
Thank you.
Yeah, is it?
June 24th, that ends in Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
And that is the end of touring for the time being. And
I know somebody in Boise too.
Hey, good. Well, good. I've heard Boise's a great town.
Yeah, they just moved from Phoenix. An astrologer friend I know just moved from Phoenix to Boise to go buy a ranch or something.
Oh, well, we can have fun.
Talk.
Every place I've been has been a party for this book. Las Cruces, Santa Fe, Taos. Austin was crazy. Austin was exactly.
I love Austin.
Austin was like a serious party. It was a 48-hour celebration.
It's Austin.
They lined up everything for 48 hours. It was great.
Wow. Cool.
I gave a talk. I did chant circle. We had parties, and it was nonstop. I was happy to leave just so I could get some rest.
Yeah, that's right.
But I had a wonderful time.
Fun.
I had these wonderful hosts, Joe and Lynn Lamb. Hello, you guys. I love you. And so it was really a wonderful party.
So how can people get your book?
My book should be everywhere right now, but
so it's in Barnes and Noble.
It should be
it's on Amazon.
It's absolutely on Amazon, but I'm going to give you a hint for
Okay.
the wise,
Hint.
which is if you go to
Hold it up.
VictorShamas.com.
Victor, spell.
VICTOR. My last name is SHAMAS.com. You're going to get the best deal on this book, and that's why you should go to my website.
That's right.
Because you're going to get, it's going to be $3 less, and I think there is shipping, but it still works out cheaper, and there's no tax.
Cool.
So all in all, you're going to save money if you get this book, and
it's better for him.
It's better for me.
I'm just saying, Amazon takes 55%. So
right, I'm happy.
Do the math.
Honestly, this never been about selling books. It never will be about selling books.
But the thing is, the more people that have the book, the more people that are benefited. And that means selling books. So that may not be the intention to sell books. The intention is to get this in the hands of people that need it, that need that inspiration, need that support of their creativity.
But when you talk about play, I want to go back to play for a second. There's something special that happens in play, which is where you lose yourself in the moment. And
a flow state. We call that samadhi.
And that samadhi is the reason I write these books. Because when I wrote Deep Creativity, I had moments where my hands were typing of their own accord on the keyboard, and I live for those moments because it feels like I'm channeling something beyond myself.
Right.
This is something that's almost a cliche. You hear it so often from artists, that feeling that you're channeling something beyond yourself. And so I know that very, very large sections of this book were written that way. And when I go back and read them, I either go, wow, did I write them? Which answer, of course, is no, I didn't really.
Not really.
And,
it came through your fingertips, but
and even
you just got out of the way.
Even though I know it's packed, I know that some of the book is challenging for some readers. Everything in it needs to be in it. It was guided and it needs to be in there.
There's a reason.
There's a reason. There's a story to be told. In these moments of inspiration, we connect at the most intimate level possible with what I call creator, creating, creation. Creator is the single source of creativity in the universe, the single source of consciousness, the only consciousness in the universe. So imagine there's only one consciousness in the universe and not 7 billion. And it's just that consciousness happens to be inhabiting you,
the space I'm in.
The space you're in and the space I'm in. And we have those moments where we cross that space and we feel that in each other. And that's part of what love is. And then there's the creating, which is that powerful, energetic cycle of creation and destruction that's unfolding, and it's unfolding within us at every moment.
All of our cells are constantly turning over.
It's a perfect example.
All the time.
All of our thoughts are turning over, right?
60,000 in a second. Yeah.
And then you have the creation, which is the set of all the thoughts in the universe. And I know that in those moments of inspiration, I have access to all of them. And if you don't think that you have access to all of them, I always ask people, where in the universe can your imagination not take you?
Right.
And we know that our imaginations can take us absolutely anywhere. That's very, very important because that is proof beyond a doubt that we have access to all of it. Right. That in theory I may not comprehend particle physics, but in theory I could. And I could access it. So,
like I went to that Science of Consciousness conference and I'd sit in the audience and a lot of it was over my head, but a lot of it I understood too. And the basic concepts of it, it's graspable.
And there's a very good chance that you absorbed it to a degree that you're not even aware you absorbed it.
Yeah.
So there's this whole area of research that I spent my graduate career and postdoc doing, which is implicit perception, implicit memory, implicit thought, which is that you have a trace of that information in you, even though you're not aware of having it. It's affecting your behavior and your thinking and your experiences.
Yeah.
So chances are that at some level you processed it.
Right. There's a Mexican proverb that says, "Tell me with whom you walk, and I will tell you who you are."
Mm.
Tell me with whom you walk, and I will tell you who you are.
That's a good one.
So just by putting myself in this environment with all these really smart people, I'm like, hey, I'm getting smarter. And that's why I like hanging out with people like Victor. Hey, he's pretty smart. I feel smarter.
Well,
Just
you're
hanging
plenty
around
smart.
with him.
You don't need me to feel smart.
So I want to go through real quick and show you some of his other books. So here's Repose, The Potent Pause.
Co-authored with Jhan Kold, who is a delight in her own right. You can see Jhan and I doing Repose on the cover. And then The Way of Play, that focuses on the concept of Leela, or divine play, which is what I learned about in India. The Chanter's Guide, you see on the cover, that's a chanting shaman in the Huichol tradition. The chant lines are what's coming out of the mouth, and the headdress indicates that you have a shaman.
Let's have my Huichol.
And there's your Huichol.
Huichol.
Perfect. And there's more Huichol
There's
art
Huichol,
right behind you. Right there.
Yes, there is. I'll show that in a sec. And then his latest book, Deep Creativity. So victorshamas.com is where you can purchase that. And I'm going to show you the Huichol art there.
That is the art that led to the cover of Deep Creativity.
Oh, nice.
So the Huichols, you see images from their peyote ceremonies. In that.
Cool.
And as far as I know, it's the only tradition I've ever found that has an image for a chanting shaman.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Because they have the headdress of the shaman and the chant lines coming out of the mouth.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to do a really quick recap. So Victor is an Aries Sun, Taurus Moon, Gemini Rising, and we see from his life that he's a pioneer, he's an action figure, he's a go-getter, he's a warrior. He's not afraid to go his own way and blaze new trails, and we've got thousands of people across the world doing global chant now because of that, and people that have been his students over the 22 years. He was a teacher, a professor at U of A, and not being afraid to take a totally different path. You know, the Gemini said, go this way at the Saturn return, and you honored that. So that takes a lot of courage. I want to acknowledge you for that. And that you're able to take, so Gemini is about, the mutable signs are about dissemination. So a lot of times we think, oh, it's just taking information in, but the reason for that is to disseminate it, like the harvest, right? You want to spread the goods of the harvest. So all of these experiences that you've had throughout your life and all of your learning and all of your inspirations have all come together to be this wonderful being that you are now, so that you can be a dispenser of wisdom, as you already have been doing.
Oh, well, thank you, Debbie. I think that when you find something sweet and delicious in the world, it's always sweeter and more delicious when it's shared.
Right.
And
Sukha,
so
sweetness.
Sukha. And so the idea is I'm leaving sort of a trail of breadcrumbs for people who want to follow in the footsteps. And because my footsteps have led to some really cool places. And so I want other people, if they want to be able to experience those things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Victor.
Thank you. It's
So
a
this
pleasure.
is, good. Astro Yoga Woman, Debbie Barnett. My channel, Astro Yoga Woman, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those things. Astro Yoga Woman, Debbie Barnett, and Victor Shamas, victorshamas.com. Namaste.
Namaste. This may be the very reason we create in the first place, whether we know it or not. It appears to be among the most fundamental of human drives. As Abraham Maslow points out, there is within the human being a pressure towards spontaneous expressiveness, towards full individuality and identity, towards seeing the truth rather than being blind, towards being creative, toward the good. To arrive at this point of wholeness and perfect communion with the Creator is to have triumphed. According to Campbell, those who know not only that the everlasting lies in them, but what they and all things really are is the everlasting, dwell in the groves of the wish-fulfilling trees, drink the brew of immortality, and listen everywhere to the unheard music of eternal concord.